The man at the desk didn't even look up when I stepped through the lobby's glass doors, just tapped the counter with 2 fingers and tilted his head toward the far hallway, like I was late for a shift. "Service elevators around the side," he said, chewing his gum loud and fast. "Deliveries don't come through here." I blinked. Once. Then looked down at the brown paper bag in my hands, Thai takeout from my favorite spot in Harlem still warm. My sneakers were scuffed from walking 3 blocks in light rain, and my hoodie had a coffee stain from this morning's spill. I must have looked tired, ordinary, and to him that meant invisible. Still, I gave him a soft nod, not because I agreed, but because I had learned something long ago. Silence is a blade. The longer you let it rest, the sharper it cuts. I didn't argue, didn't say I live here, didn't tell him about the penthouse I had purchased in full 8 months ago, or that I could buy this entire lobby and fire him by Monday. Instead, I turned, walked past the marble fountains and fresh orchids, and found myself standing at the back hallway beside a rusted metal door marked Freight Only. The service elevator. I pressed the button, waited, and when the heavy door finally groaned open, I stepped inside. The walls were scratched with moving company tape residue. The light flickered, and in the corner sat a man in a janitor's uniform, rubbing his knees with calloused hands. He looked up, startled, until I smiled. "Evening," I said, handing him the unopened box of spring rolls. "You like shrimp?" He blinked twice. "Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you." I nodded. Don't mention it. He didn't know I lived upstairs either, but at least he looked me in the eye. The penthouse was quiet when I walked in. All floor-to-ceiling glass, black granite counters, and the scent of lemon oil from the cleaner I hired every Thursday. No one ever asked who she worked for. I slipped off my shoes, unpacked the food, and turned on Coltrane. The music filled the space like breath in lungs, like memory in an old house, like my grandmother's voice, still tucked somewhere in my chest, saying, "Let 'em underestimate you, baby. That's your power. They think they're stepping on you, not knowing you're the ground they stand on." Downstairs I could still hear the distant hum of the lobby fountain through the floor vents, and that same security guard's voice, echoing faintly. "Ma'am, delivery entrance is that way." I smiled, because tomorrow I wouldn't use the service elevator, but I would be scheduling a meeting with the condo board, and they wouldn't see me coming. The next morning, the sky over Manhattan split gold across the skyline. I sipped my coffee in silence, standing barefoot on the balcony, 30 stories up, wind pulling gently at the hem of my robe. The city didn't look so loud from up here. It looked manageable, small even. From up here, the noise turned into rhythm, and the chaos into choreography. But I knew that was only a trick of height. I checked the time. 7:42 a.m. By 8, the building's management office would open downstairs, and I'd already printed out the documents. The deed, the closing statement, and my attorney's email with the subject line, "Let me know when you're ready to escalate." At 7:55, I walked into the management suite on the 3rd floor. The receptionist blinked at me. She was new, young, maybe mid-20s, with a polished bob, and the over-cheerful tone people use when they're not quite sure who you are. "Hi, deliveries usually go through the..." I held up the envelope. "I'm Dr. Nadine Ellis. I live in PHA." She hesitated, then typed something into her monitor. Eyes widened. Oh, yes, Dr. Ellis, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize... Would you like to speak with Mr. Lang?" "I'd like to schedule a board meeting," I said evenly. "Today. I believe I qualify to call one under the condo bylaws. Section 7, Article 3. She blinked again, then nodded, suddenly scribbling notes. I didn't wait for confirmation. Back in the elevator, the main one this time, I pressed the button for the top floor, alone. A man stepped in just before the doors closed. Tall. White, mid-50s, expensive cologne and a voice that sounded like golf clubs. He glanced at me, then my hoodie, then the smoothie in my hand. "Going to 11?" he asked. I didn't answer. He leaned in slightly, confused. "You cleaning for someone on 12 or—" I turned to him. "I'm going to 34, the penthouse," he chuckled. "Really, you must be visiting." I stared him dead in the face, voice flat, no smile. "No, I own the penthouse." The elevator beeped softly. He swallowed, looked at the floor, didn't say another word. When the doors opened, I stepped out into my private vestibule. Before they closed behind me, I turned back and said with a kind smile, "Next time, just say, 'Good morning.'" That afternoon, the board gathered in their sleek, glass-walled conference room overlooking the Hudson. 5 of them, all middle-aged, all dressed in dark tones like they were attending a funeral. I guess, in a way, they were. "Dr. Ellis," the chair began, rising halfway, voice strained. "We didn't realize there was an issue." "Oh," I said, setting my papers down on the table. "There's not an issue. There are several." Their eyes darted to each other. I could feel the tension ripple beneath the polished oak table. I've documented 6 separate incidents in which I've been told to use the service elevator by staff who didn't even check my name. I let that sink in. One of them. They asked me to wait outside. Another had security escort me to the rear exit. And yesterday your lobby guard dismissed me without so much as a glance. "But surely," a woman interrupted, "that was just a misunderstanding." "Which keeps happening," I cut in, calm, precise. "And you've refused to fix a plumbing issue in my unit for 3 weeks, even though I submitted every request form, even though I own the unit free and clear." I slid the folder toward them. "And I'd like those incident reports filed, documented, and included in the next association minutes. I'm also requesting mandatory anti-bias training for all building staff and replacement of the lobby security desk." The chair leaned forward, voice low. "Dr. Ellis, if you'd spoken to us earlier, we could have—" I tilted my head, just slightly. I shouldn't have to explain myself to be treated like I belong in the building I own. No one responded. Good. When I walked back through the lobby that evening, a same hoodie, same bag of takeout, the guard at the desk stood up this time, straightened his tie, cleared his throat. "Evening, Dr. Ellis." I gave him a nod, walked past the orchids, straight to the main elevator, and smiled. I didn't expect the silence to last. The nods, the sudden respect, the overly formal greetings in the hallway. It was all too clean, too quick, like dust shoved under a rug when guests come over. By day 4, the whispers started. "She came out of nowhere. I heard she's some kind of doctor. No wedding ring, but money. I caught it in passing, in the elevator mirrors, in the way their mouths stopped moving the moment I stepped into a room. But I was used to that kind of silence, the kind that hums just loud enough to sting, the kind that follows you like a second skin, like how they look through you and then later tell you they're surprised how smart you are. A week later, I got the call from Mr. Lang, the building manager. "Dr. Ellis, I hope you're doing well. The board was wondering if you'd consider attending our upcoming owner's brunch on Sunday." I paused. He kept going. "Several residents would love the chance to connect, talk through some of the concerns in a more informal setting." Translation. They didn't like the paper trail I was building. They wanted me to be quiet, but in a pretty dress with a mimosa. I agreed, but not for their comfort. That Sunday, I wore black. Tailored blazer, braided hair wrapped in a silk. Turban. No jewelry, just presents. The rooftop garden had been cleared of snow, set with white linens and gold-rimmed champagne flutes. It was a luxury so casual it felt ridiculous. People in Patagonia vests and designer loafers chuckled beside. Warm fire pits sipping overpriced rosé like it was church wine. I knew exactly how they'd try to play it. Fake warmth. Polite laughter. passive digs. "Dr. Ellis," one woman greeted me with a thin-lipped smile. "You look so different when you're not in your sweats." I smiled. "And you look exactly like someone who rehearsed that in the mirror." Her mouth opened, then closed. I moved on. Halfway through the event, Mr. Lang clinked his glass. "We're excited to welcome Dr. Nadine Ellis as one of our newest residents," he announced. "She's a... What was it again, Doctor?" I let the pause stretch. "I'm a neurosurgeon," I said softly. "Patented a few surgical navigation tools, sold the second one to Medtronic." A silence fell over the patio. Eyes widened. Sips halted mid-air. "Oh, wow," someone muttered. I wasn't done, and yes, I added, setting down my drink, "I walk around in hoodies. I carry my own groceries. I tip in cash. And I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm here," I said slowly, "because I earned this space just like anyone else, and I won't be made to feel like I'm trespassing in my own home." No one clapped. Good. Afterward, one of the building's maintenance workers, Paul, I'd learned, found me near the exit. "You made that whole roof go quiet," he said with a low chuckle. "They ain't never had a black woman tell 'em off without even raising her voice." I smirked. "Louder doesn't mean stronger." He nodded. "They gonna remember you." I raised an eyebrow. "They should." That night, a bouquet appeared at my door. No card. Just white peonies, my favorite, and a note in messy handwriting. "You said what needed to be said. Thank you for being who you are." I folded it, tucked it into the drawer beside my mother's photo, and whispered under my breath, "Still not finished yet." They stopped pretending after that brunch. No more fake smiles, no more "Dr. Ellis, we're so glad you're here." The cold returned, sharp and deliberate, but quieter this time, like a punishment you weren't supposed to name. It started with the mail, packages delayed. One of them, a new pair of walking shoes from a black-owned company I love, was mysteriously misplaced for 3 weeks. I found it later tossed in a trash bin in the mailroom, box crushed and wet from someone's coffee cup. Then it was the parking spot. Mine was suddenly marked under maintenance. For 14 days, yet every morning I saw a silver BMW parked in it. "Belonging to Mr. Are you visiting?" From the elevator, I emailed the board. No reply. I forwarded it again. Silence. So I called a meeting. This time I didn't walk in alone. Beside me sat my attorney, a calm black woman with round glasses, skin like mine, and the most dangerous smile in Manhattan. "Thank you all for coming," I said, as I placed my binder on the boardroom table. "We've got some updates to discuss." Mr. Lang cleared his throat. "Dr. Ellis, some of these matters are internal operations, perhaps best handled without outside counsel." My attorney didn't blink. "Then why haven't they been handled at all?" She laid out the timeline. The parking discrimination, the mail tampering, the repeated denial of basic amenities that every other resident enjoyed. Then she said 3 words that silenced the room. Pattern of harassment. She didn't have to raise her voice. She didn't need to. After the meeting, the hallway, lights felt brighter, cleaner. That week the package room was suddenly deep cleaned and reorganized. My parking spot was repainted. A notice went out to residents about mail protocol improvements and bias training for all front-facing staff. Still, no one said a word to me in the elevator. Fine. I didn't need them to smile. I just needed them to remember that silence doesn't equal weakness, and respect, real respect, isn't optional. One afternoon, I caught Paul again, fixing a vent on the 6th floor. He gave me a crooked smile. "You shake this whole building." Without even breaking a sweat, I laughed. "You know what my grandma used to say?" He leaned on his toolbox. "What's that?" "Let 'em try you soft, just make sure they don't forget you sharp." He slapped his knee. That's exactly it. We stood there a moment, 2 invisible people suddenly seen, not by everyone, but by each other. And that some days was enough. The board thought I'd back down, that I'd file one complaint, make one speech, and disappear back into my penthouse like a ghost with a mortgage. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that I wasn't here to just exist in this space. I came to own it. Spring came with no warning. One day the sidewalks were covered in black ice and cigarette ash. The next, tulips pushed through the planters out front, and pigeons danced on the ledges like they owned the skyline. I'd been living in the penthouse for 8 months, but it wasn't until that week that I felt myself inhabit it. Like the walls knew my name now, like the floors didn't flinch when I walked barefoot to the kitchen. Like the space wasn't something I had to earn every time I crossed the lobby, but the building didn't forget. Not all of it. Mr. Lang was cordial now, careful too, but his eyes darted when I spoke. The board chair avoided me altogether. One of the women, Claire something, still offered tight smiles in the hallway that never reached her eyes, and then came the concerned letter, printed on official condo board letterhead, slipped under my door like a threat in a paper envelope. Dr. Ellis, several residents have expressed discomfort over recent tensions in the building. We would appreciate your cooperation in maintaining a peaceful atmosphere. Your visibility and tone during public meetings may be unintentionally divisive. I read it twice, then once more. Then calmly, without a word, I scanned it and forwarded it to my attorney. The next morning, I requested to rent the rooftop lounge for a weekend community event, a small scholarship fundraiser I'd been planning quietly for months. Nothing extravagant, just live jazz, light bites, and a silent auction for underfunded black STEM programs in the city. I sent the form, waited. 4 days passed, then came the email. Dear Dr. Ellis, unfortunately, the rooftop is no longer available for personal events due to recent policy changes. We apologize for the inconvenience. No explanation, no warning. I checked the building calendar. It was blank. They wanted me quiet, soft-spoken, invisible, unless smiling. They were learning the hard way. I don't fade. 2 weeks later, the New York Times real estate section ran a story. Black women are buying Manhattan. Quiet wealth, bold change. Spotlight, Dr. Nadine Ellis, neurosurgeon and advocate. Reshaping luxury. 1 floor at a time, they'd asked for a photo of me in the penthouse. I declined. Instead, I gave them a picture of my grandmother in her nursing uniform. 1961. Bronze skin, pressed hair, crooked smile. She wasn't allowed to rent in half the city. Now her granddaughter owned the skyline. The morning the article ran, the doorman offered me a real smile. You look like you got the whole city in. Your hands, Dr. Ellis. I nodded. Feels that way sometimes, and for the first time someone in that lobby said it with no disbelief in their voice. You belong here. They stopped speaking my name out loud. Now it was her, or that. Doctor upstairs. But it didn't matter, because the name they didn't want to say was the one etched on the building's deed. Dr. Nadine Ellis. After the Times article, everything moved faster. The real estate blog picked it up first. Then a neighborhood podcast invited me to speak on Black Excellence in Spaces Designed to Exclude Us. I agreed, but not to be inspirational. I told the truth. I'm not here to be your success story, I said. I'm here because I was raised by a woman who had doors slammed in her face, and I decided to buy the buildings those doors were attached to. A week after the podcast dropped, the emails started coming in. Not from the board. No, they stayed quiet. But from the staff, the janitor, a front desk attendant from the night shift, the woman who'd once turned me away at the gym entrance. Little messages, all unsigned, all quiet. Thank you for showing us what's possible. Never seen someone handle them the way you do. They don't know what to do with someone, who doesn't shrink. And then finally someone broke. Claire from the hallway caught me by the elevator one afternoon. Dr. Ellis, she said breathlessly, like the words were too heavy in her mouth. I just wanted to apologize. I waited. She kept going. I think maybe I judged you. I didn't know your background. I just saw... Well, I didn't see, really. I'm sorry if I made you feel like you didn't belong. If... She flinched. I wasn't cruel. Just honest. It's not about what you meant, it's about what you chose not to see, she nodded slowly. Still, I'm trying to do better. I looked at her for a long moment, then gave a small, measured nod. Start by not waiting for someone like me to prove they're worthy. The elevator chimed. She stepped back. I stepped in. That night, Paul was mopping the lobby when I passed by. He glanced up with a half grin. They treating you like a ghost or a queen today? Both, I said, depending on how insecure they're feeling. He chuckled. Sounds about right. Then he leaned on the handle, his voice lower. Word is some of the staff want to unionize, been talking about it for years, but nobody had the guts. You changed something, you know. I didn't answer right away, but I felt it. The shift. Not in their approval. I never asked for that. But in the air, the walls, the floor beneath my feet. The silence was breaking, and this time, it was them who didn't feel safe in it. It was almost poetic, the way the building tried to hold its dignity while unraveling at the seams. On the surface, everything still sparkled, polished marble, curated orchids, and jazz through the lobby speakers. But beneath it, cracks. The front desk staff had started rotating out. Some were on leave and others just quietly gone. A maintenance request spreadsheet leaked to a tenants group chat. It showed how certain units, the old money ones, got repairs within 2 days. The rest waited weeks. Someone printed. It taped it to the back wall of the laundry room. It wasn't mine, but my name was whispered behind every ripple. The board sent another letter. This time through a lawyer, coded but clear. While we recognize Dr. Ellis's contributions to community engagement, we must emphasize the importance of maintaining a cohesive residential tone, actions interpreted as organizing or disrupting. Building harmony may result in formal review. I smiled when I read that last line, because when the people in power start using words like harmony, they're scared. I didn't respond. Not in writing. Not yet. Instead, I booked the lounge. And not for a party, but for a panel. 3 women. All black. All residents of high-rise buildings across the city. One an architect, one a real estate developer, one a civil rights housing attorney. The invite went out as a private networking event, but the title on the email read, Space. Access, ownership. The day of the panel, Mr. Lang tried to stop it. Dr. Ellis, we're getting complaints. This event feels political. I tilted my head. So does letting discrimination slide. But you didn't cancel that. His mouth opened and then closed. I have the lounge reserved, snacks catered and insurance covered. So unless you'd like to escalate things to court, again, I suggest you let the conversation happen. He stepped aside. The lounge filled. Not just with residents, but with staff. People who never looked up when guests walked by. Now seated in the back rows, quietly listening. I opened the panel with one sentence. Power isn't just who signs the mortgage. It's who gets to feel safe where they live. No one moved. Not even the ones who thought I couldn't see their discomfort. After the event, one of the building's concierge staff approached me. Young, Dominican, nervous. You think someone like me could ever buy a place like this? I looked her in the eye. Not if they keep building gates in your mind, I said. But yes, you could. And you should. She nodded. And I saw it. That flicker. That shift. A seed planted. Later that week, I passed Mr. Are you visiting? In the elevator again. He didn't say a word this time. Just stood silent, eyes fixed on the number display. I didn't need a greeting. Not from him. Because I had something better now. Presence. And the thing about presence is, once it's felt, it can't be ignored. It had been exactly 1 year since the first time someone waved me toward the service elevator without looking up. 365 days since I stood in this lobby, holding a bag of takeout, invisible in the building I owned. But today was different. I stood in front of that same desk, same marble, same cold light, and looked the new concierge in the eye. He was young, nervous, freshly hired. But he met my gaze, smiled, and said without hesitation, "Good morning, Dr. Ellis. Would you like me to call the elevator?" I smiled back. Not for him, but for every woman before me who had to prove she belonged somewhere that was already hers. "No need," I said softly. "I know the way." Upstairs, the penthouse was filled with sun. Not just light, sun. Full, golden, defiant. The kind of light that dared to exist in every corner they told you you'd never reach. I poured tea and walked barefoot across the heated floor. The morning news played softly from the kitchen tablet. Today, the City Council will vote on new policies requiring anti-discrimination oversight in luxury residential buildings, sparked in part by a viral story featuring neurosurgeon and homeowner Dr. Nadine Ellis. I turned it off. I didn't need to hear my name on the news, because the win wasn't in the headlines, it was in the stillness, the calm. It was in how no one looked twice when I walked through the front doors anymore. It was in how Paul's knees finally got approved for surgery, covered in full by the new union health plan. It was in how the young Dominican concierge had asked me for advice on med school applications last week. The win wasn't loud. It didn't have to be, because dignity is quiet like that, permanent, rooted like granite, like the kind they laid in this building before they ever imagined someone like me would own the top floor. I picked up the mail, 3 cards and a letter. 1 card from a little girl named Amina, whose science club I'd sponsored. A drawing of a black woman with a white coat and a crown, standing on a building that touched the clouds. Inside, it read, "Thank you for making space for girls like me." That evening, as I stepped into the main elevator, hoodie on, keys in hand, a couple entered behind me. New residents, judging by their unsure glances and the way they whispered floor numbers to each other. The man looked at me and asked, "Casually visiting someone up top?" I turned, calm, soft smile. "No, I live there." He blinked, and before he could ask another question, the concierge's voice cut in clearly from behind the desk. "That's Dr. Ellis. She owns the penthouse." The man flushed, mumbled something. I nodded to the concierge, then faced forward, and, as the elevator rose, smooth, silent, I closed my eyes and let the moment settle. Not as revenge, not even as proof, but as peace. Because they told me to use the service elevator. And now, they hold the door for me.